Here there is a question about a biblical sentence that has many interpretations. The phrase is, "To the one who has, more will be given, and from the one who has little, even what they have will be taken away." Among other interpretations that it could have, it could be indicating two opposite karmic situations. The one who is supposed to live the trial of abundance, which is a very difficult test to be resolved because not everyone knows how to have things correctly, and to have more than necessary, it's even more difficult. So there is this test of our having things in abundance. So if we are in this test, to see how we act towards this, so the more we have, the more we will have. And this is the test, and we have to see how we are going to live this, and what we do with this, what we do with the gifts that have been lent to us, because nothing is ours. These things that we say we have, are things that could go away just as they have come. So if we are going through the test to see what we do with the things that are given to us, this, to the one who has, more will be given. Now, from the one who has little, even what they have will be taken away. This is the contrary test, to see how we act, how we behave, how we understand, how we accept, to live, to experience those things that are called lacks or lack, which are tests to see how we behave before a situation like this that is opposed to the first one. And a person says that we know that we are supposed to elevate our vibrational pattern, we have to take care of our thoughts, feelings, actions, etc. But in practice, this theory is not always applied as we would like them to be. What we could do to really live that which we want to be. I think that it helps us very much for us to have in mind that we already are. We don't have to be one day. We already are in essence, in depth, in our reality. We already are what we are supposed to be. In the one mind, we are already. This helps a lot. And these limitations, which we are to be found in the middle of the way, in this recognition, these are temporary, passing things. And even when we are to be found so limited, at this very moment, we already are what we are supposed to be. This helps us to go through these stages of recognition of our own being. Now, in practice, as the person says, on the day by day, we would have to proceed and continue to strive, to endeavor, because these feelings, these thoughts, these actions that for this person are undesirable, these are habits which we have already acquired throughout lifetimes or in this same lifetime. So for you to change a habit or for you to dissolve a habit, it is necessary to have will. It is necessary to want this. If the individual does not want, if the individual does not have enough will to dissolve a habit, of course they will not find energy to do this. Now, if they have the will, the determination to dissolve a habit, because any habit is supposed to be dissolved. There is no habit that is supposed to remain. But there are negative and positive habits. And we let ourselves be led by positive habits. As it's positive, we think it's a good habit, but it's not useful either. Habits are things to be dissolved, transcended, or changed, and change until it reaches a different state. So we need to persist and insist in the beginning. And then it is as if a mechanism, an automatic mechanism were triggered, and we no longer need to do so much effort because we have made some effort, we have made a certain work. So this different mechanism is triggered, and then you perceive a little bit things happen, you perceive it before. You perceive it and you can have the strength to not let yourself be led. But this happens after you make an effort for some time. Or it also happens that after making an effort during a certain time, it happens that you either perceive it before and prevent it for that thought or feeling to be fulfilled, or you perceive during the emission of the feeling and the thought, and you have strength to interrupt this or to change that. So it is a matter of practice, it is a matter of persistence. And during a certain stage, of course, even doing this whole work, we won't be manifesting that which we are entirely, but we will be manifesting this stage of persistence, will be manifesting this stage of effort, this stage of endeavor to reach this transformation. In these things, it's necessary not to hurry and proceed. And it seems like it's an endless path, but it is not. At a certain point, we can perceive that things are happening as it is aspired for. We are having many opportunities in this time, in this epoch, as we know. And here there are two explicit cases of this. Someone dreamed, for example, that there was a gas station and a key in her hand. And this was so real that she woke up with her hands as if she were holding the key on the physical plane. She woke up and her hand had the position in which in the dream she received the key. And when she looked at her hand, instinctively she began to look for the key because that was very real for her. So she began to look for the key in her bed. So real the dream had been. Of course, this is a help that the person was having. This key that is given to us, this is a ability for us to deal with situations. So we have the skill, we have the key, we have the skill to deal with situations, because skill is something that is required from all of us on the spiritual path. We have to be skillful to deal with everything, mainly with the forces that play within us, these forces that are contrastant within us. We need skill for this because there is a fight with these forces with one another. These forces fight, they are antagonists. So when this begins to fight within us, when these contradictions, these contrasts begin to appear in us, they are these forces playing or fighting inside of us with one another. So we need to be skillful to deal with them. And each one will see what it means for them. This person received the key. She received in the sense of being skillful to deal with situations. It would be good that before situations that are critical or need more care, they should remember that the skill exists in her, and should not be driven by impulse as she used to do. This is an old habit. So this impulse, this thing of doing things without thinking, this is lack of skill to deal with situations. So we receive this key, and then things change. So this key, this skillfulness could present itself before in many aspects. And the same person, the same day she drank this, she opened a book of the series of Agni Yoga, and she opened this in this sentence: endeavor is the key to the keyhole. So here it is, effort, or endeavor, determination, decision. So for you, the key is endeavor. This is what is going to open the keyhole. And endeavor is really very necessary. Here, for example, see, we were in a meeting in which they spoke about many subjects of the group in Figueira, a meeting of people willing to help in everything. And during the meeting, someone had a dream while she was awake. This dream that we have with our eyes open while doing other things. The body is not sleeping, the brain is not sleeping, but we have a dream. So we have our eyes open, but at the same time we are dreaming. This is a mechanism that exists. So this person was in the meeting, and at the same time she was dreaming this. 2 water streams were channeled to a great reservoir. One would come through the left and the other one through the right. So before they came together in this central channel that led that wellspring to the reservoir, the waters, both of the one side as well as the other side, went through a fabric that filtered the rough pieces of objects like leaves and branches, etc. And there was need of people to remove that material that was accumulated there in a way that it wouldn't allow the volume of water that was very great to overflow to outside of the streams, both of the one of the left as the one of the right. This water was going to be purified, to be redistributed, and also to move a powerful generator. Well, so we have these 2 water streams that represent a positive and a negative. This must unite in one thing. And for this to unite, this needs to be purified. This is why there was that filter. So it's necessary to have this purification of the water that comes to the 2 polarities, positive and negative, before this unites and creates one only stream reaching the reservoir. This needs to be filtered, to be purified, to be worked upon. And the dream says that there was need for people to do this. There was the need of beings to remove these things that were in the water, these things that were accumulated behind the filters, so that this water wouldn't overflow before it reached the reservoir. So you see these 2 water streams and this water represent the impartial energy, the total energy that come with everything, with leaves, with branches. The energy comes entire as it is. And in the middle of the process, in the middle of the way, we are going to gradually find ways to deal with this energy, to treat this energy, so it's going to reach an end. It may fulfill its trajectory and task. But before these gifts, for this energy not to overflow, to come out, to be lost, we need to be fulfilling our part. In this case, removing these objects that impede the energy to reach the point it needs to reach in the way it needs to be, how it needs to be. And see, you see here, we have a dream in which we see the need of the fulfillment of a task. We see the action of contrary forces, that this may be fulfilled, and we see very clearly the value of fulfilling a task, because we have a task and we only know a part of the use of this. We are not aware of how the broad use of this, the broad reason for the existence of this task. So we fulfill a task for a reason, but there are so many reasons for this task to be developed and fulfilled that we cannot even imagine. So in the dream, the choir was preparing to sing, but a strong wind began impeding the choir to make the presentation. The wind began to carry each one of us one by one, and we had to gather all of us together so that we wouldn't be taken by that wind. So you see the situation. There was a group of people waiting to hear the choir, and among them, some of them were with their trip with date for them to travel, and they were waiting for the choir to sing so that they could go to their journey, carry on their journey. This is useful not only for the choir, but for any task that is given to us, any task offered to us. And there is always not only people who need that task to exist, that task to be developed, for them to go through a process. Not only this, but as many people cannot proceed that path if they don't go through that which they need. So this is something very important for us to have in mind. So our responsibility before a task, it could have a very positive consequence and negative in other cases. In that case, if this is not carried out as it is indicated. And we know that we are helped in all possible ways. Not only have circumstances available for us to develop certain things, but also we are helped by tests that we have to go through. We are helped in different ways. Here, this person says that when she was 6 or 7 years old, she would lay down and cry a lot in silence because she didn't understand the things of this world when she was 6 or 7 years old. But one night, a voice came to her mind and began to speak to her. It was a male, masculine voice, a very loving voice, and produced a lot of joy for her to hear this voice. So after a cycle, because until the 7 years old, we are going through a cycle. After a cycle of preparation, of course, someone who is 6 or 7 years old for the situation of the world is someone who had been prepared in a previous lifetime, because this is not normal. So this being was already prepared, and the inner being was anxious to be able to reach the moment of the opportunity for this being to continue to proceed in that which they had been doing. And until 7 years old, there was no opportunity to proceed, because until 7 years old is a preparatory phase when our bodies are being formed, mainly the etherical physical body. They are being formed during these 7 years. So although we have things to do, we may have things to do, these bodies have to be formed before. So in these 7 first years, it's a lost time for those who are conscious of what they have to do on earth. The second 7 years could be also lost time, teenaging. So this is why we are being helped by the law of transmutation, because a soul that is already prepared, a soul that is aware of what they have to do, they don't need to cry so much. And they don't need to wait for the moment for them to resume their work to come. Through the law of transmutation, this soul will enter a body that is prepared already, in an environment, a situation already prepared for them to develop what they have come to develop. But it's not the case of this person, because she had to fulfill this whole trajectory. She had to go up the Calvary from her birth to 7 years old. This is a Calvary for those who have other trajectories before oneself. So this voice that she heard, she had to wait for the mental body to be formed for her to hear this voice. So she had to give time to form the etherical, the astral, and for the mental to be in condition to hear this voice, for her to find that state that she had left. And oftentimes the place where we incarnate out of karma, or an opportunity that we may have, eventually in that environment, there may not be understanding for our state, for our situation, or that which we have come to do. And here there was no problem, only the problem of her being able to hear this inner voice, the mental body being in condition to hear this male voice. And she asked things, she would ask things to this voice, and this voice would answer her and would explain to her what she was supposed to receive as an answer. So you see that our earthly situation is very relative for these things, because when we really have to go through something, no earthly situation can limit us. This is a typical case of this. So she asked to this voice, she asked this voice where this voice was speaking to her from, what this voice was, because this voice could mean many things. So where this voice was coming from. And the voice said that the voice came from a base outside the earth. Of course, yes, because the person hears a male voice in her mind speaking to her, she could think that she's a male being, although she's incarnated in a male being. And then many deceits happen from then on. But she asked, where this voice is coming? Where are you coming from? It comes from a base outside the earth. As I didn't understand what this was, a base outside the earth, the voice began to speak to me, but only spoke to a part of my mind, to the part of my mind that could understand. And the part that could not understand could not hear anything. That is, there was no possibility for conflict, because we have a dual mind, a concrete mind and a mind that is not concrete. So here, from this base, this was neutralized. They made the concrete part of the mind deaf, and she could hear only with the one part of the mind, which was available for evolution right away. So see how interesting the work of these bases with us. So this voice began to speak, but only to the part of my mind that was prepared for this at that moment. So then she began to perceive, to be instructed to receive that. But as the concrete mind had been quieted down, she could not distinguish everything that happened and everything that she received. But something happened to her and many changes happened. But then, after some time, this voice said that at a certain point they were going to get her to take them with them. But there would be many meetings before. This wouldn't be so fast. And just by remembering this, she says, it brings me a sensation of relief that is so great, because I understand that I no longer have to be anxious. You see, we know that there are many of these bases that work with us in different ways. And here we have a sharing of someone who is working with one of them. They could ask, but in these bases, do they speak our language? Can I hear as if it were a person from here speaking? No, it could be that they don't speak any language in these bases. But the impulses that come from these beings or bases, the impulses that come from there, within our mechanism, our mind or our brain, these impulses are translated into a way that we can understand them. So I can receive an external impulse like this, and I can only feel the impulse and follow the impulse. This is a very simple way. But this happens differently with each one. This is not the same with all. For another one, I could hear this impulse as a voice that speaks to me. And if this voice comes to speak to me, of course, they are going to express themselves in my language. So the impulse is translated into sentences in my language. Like this impulse could be translated in so many ways. And when I was reading this, it came to me that this base that this voice was referring to, that this base could be something much simpler than what we think of. It could be even the moon itself that is working with us in a certain way in this stage. Not the moon as a moon, but the moon as a base that it became, as a base of operations, extraterrestrial operations. So this moon base is working with us. So through this space, many energies, balancing and harmonizing energies are emerging at this moment for the Earth and for each one of us also. Oftentimes, we know that during the night or during sleep, something happened to us, but we don't remember, we don't have this memory, and we cannot have it because it was something that, a work that was done with us in our subtle body, or in the mental body, or the astral body, or the etherical body. So one of these bodies may be taken to a base like this It can be harmonized, balanced, treated. It can go as many times as necessary, but the brain does not register this. The brain does not remember it because it didn't register this. The brain didn't go together because the physical body does not go together. Many states in which we are to be found today, very special states of psychic confusion, or many states of feeling psychically bad and mentally bad. We could consider and have in mind that we can be treated in this way. It could happen to us. A process like this can happen to us. And before we resort to earthly means, traditional means, or purely material means to treat abnormal things that are happening to us in this time of chaos, psychic chaos, and this chaos is expanding, as you know. Before we resort to any material means, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't resort to them, but before resorting to any material means, we should remember these other means. We can remember that the treatments, healing, even surgeries in our bodies, all of this, we should remember that there are other means, non-material, non-external means for these things to happen. And when people share these things that happen with them, it is an opportunity for us to remember these things. Because even among people who are on the path, even among people who are informed of these things, we see these very common phrases, comments on one's own state and the resources they are using to take care of themselves, that completely ignore these things, as if we had a piece of information, piece of knowledge, and in practice we lived in a different way. We lived other things. In practice, we were common people, normal people who don't know about these things or who don't want to know about these things. Oftentimes, when the energy of the planet gradually changes, like now, the psychic plane of the planet gets very heavy, confusing, due to everything that is happening, everything that is developed. So we would have to, if we have to be here, we would have not only to be nourished or helped or nurtured, spiritually nurtured in a correct direction, but we should also adapt in a certain sense to this situation of the earth. Really adapt from physical things, food, water, air, very physical things, and we need to do adaptations to proceed within these conditions that get ever more degenerated. So we need to adapt, we need to be adaptable. And many do not manage to do this on their own. Many do not have this process of self-transmutation of their own forces, energies. Many don't have this naturally, automatic. So they can remember in the times of difficulty, they can remember all of this that is available, all of this that happens today, and prepare to be in situations that are very special, very abnormal, like this of a person who hears a male voice speaking to her, explaining things to her, and transmitting her what she's supposed to receive. And nowadays, this is not something that is considered eventually what it is explained scientifically, but this is considered to be a very common situation today, because if we don't have condition to have a conscious, concrete contact with an external help like this, we could have this help unconsciously. We could have this help, all these things could happen with us unconsciously, without our being aware of this. And these bases do this very simply, with much simplicity. You must be accompanying the work of a base here, which we call sewing nucleus externally. You can watch the processes that people go through there without anyone doing anything. There is no direct work on the process of the person, but the process of the person is developed there. It changes, and this is the work of a base that we need to recognize. We need to realize its presence, and we realize the presence of a base like this when we are in these places. These places mean this consciousness, because not everyone can be physically in the sewing nucleus. Sewing nucleus is not only for us, for those who come to Figueira and are lodged there. Sewing nucleus is to have work that is similar to a vessel. It's an omnipresent work, which is extended and strengthened as we internally recognize this, and we become responsible for this, for that which will be able to happen there. These bases, they deal not only with us. These bases don't have an individual work or only group work, but these bases work with regions of the earth. They work with parts of the earth. So a base like this could be developing a sort of magnetism that comes to preserve certain regions of the earth from contamination brought from nuclear experiences that we don't even know where they are being done. We don't need to know, because this is not our field. So certain nuclear things, highly contaminant, could be dissolved, could be resolved, or could be worked by the magnetism of a base like this, liberating many areas of the earth, many beings from intoxication and unbalance. And if these things act on the mental plane, so a mental imbalance comes. If these things act on the astral plane, emotional unbalance comes. And if these things act in etherical physical, a state of physical intoxication comes. We have many pieces of information available, both regarding the moon, as well as the base of Iberá, this intra-terrestrial center of Iberá, as well as this constitution, this inner constitution of sewing nucleus. So we should not be indifferent to these subjects and think that these subjects are for 2 or 3 or for people who coordinate. This is with everyone. Everyone must be aware of these subjects, and everyone must be working on these subjects. Of course, we will work on these subjects. We are going to study about the moon, Iberá, sewing, whatever, the rays, whatever. We are going to gradually be informed about this, not eventually to act towards others consciously, because this could create a serious obstacle to the work. Someone who is not supposed to interfere in these things interfere in others' treatments who are there. We are not invited to participate in these pieces of information for this, but for us to respond to this as beings and for us to become aware in our current process. How many people think that their own process are those psychological processes described in psychology books? So how many people go astray through these things? The process of today is something different, something else happens today. Before all these things happened, after 1975, after 1988, we have a functioning that can be transmuted at any moment. Our subtle bodies could be changed. Even our physical body, etherical physical body, could be redeemed of so many things. The bases and the inner planes are acting directly in our processes. So it seems like we would have a period of more openness, very explicit openness to these things, so that the sowing nucleus and other areas of Figueira may express themselves more freely. The other day, someone who sees things inside asked why the construction of sowing nucleus was in a slower rhythm than the other constructions that happened here in Figueira, and it was answered to him internally that group consciousness was lacking regarding sowing nucleus, that there were many people who are very aware of sowing nucleus, but the group was lacking group consciousness regarding this subject. This is why we are dealing with these things in group, because in the group there is need for group awareness of certain aspects of the work of Figueira, and also regarding the sowing nucleus. Awareness of sowing nucleus for this group awareness about sowing nucleus, so that this vessel may express itself more freely. On Earth at this moment, there is a use and abuse of atomic nuclear experiences. The center of Iberá and the moon are treating or are trying to balance these things and prevent that on the planet there will be a generalized imbalance. We must learn to collaborate with these things, because it's not for free or for our individual and personal use that a base on Earth is formed, such as sowing nucleus. A base on Earth is not materialized only for us human beings, because our bodies could be taken to these bases and this could be resolved there. This has a planetary task that embraces certain regions of the Earth that have need for certain things. And I was visualizing this subject, and I saw that for us to have a group process of collaboration with the formation of sowing nucleus, it is necessary that within our consciousness, this idea that this sowing nucleus is useful for us should be expanded, that we go there to be healed, for us to go there and resolve our things. This individualism must be expanded. This has to be resolved so that this may really emerge, so that this may really happen within the deadlines and the determined cycles. So there are things that Iberá, that the moon and other bases can be organizing themselves to fulfill and must be fulfilling. But there is also our own part as a spiritual group. As the sowing nucleus, there is our part within this plan, within this scheme. And as we see that here people have channels that are already prepared even to dream and to have certain things consciously, if they don't have this sort of temperament, they can go through the same experiences unconsciously. As there are beings who are prepared, we see that the group is apt to assume these tasks. As we hear about these things and have these things in mind, this changes our focus very much and our relationship not only with this spiritual center, but also with its tasks that must be developed and which this spiritual center was created for. But we would have to ask light regarding this subject and really have this very much in mind, not worried with this, but with this in mind, recognizing that we are part of a plan, that we are not on the earth to experience our life and the life of our family, our grandchildren and children. This is very little, this is nothing nowadays, this is nothing. Those who live only for this is a burden on this planet in this time. It's a dead burden on this planet. It means that the good people, correct people, honest people from yesterday are dead burden on the planet because much more is necessary, is needed from us, all of us. The planetary situation, the cyclic moment of the planet requires much more from us than being good people, than being correct people, given people. This is nothing at all. These are individual things. These are things of human family, little things. Much more is being required from us nowadays. The situation asks for much more from us. Well, here there is an energy present in this spiritual center, in this work. There is an energy that is more or less of this type. But it's necessary for us to be willing to lead our little cocoon, to break this shell that is our appearance. Appearance doesn't only mean physical and external appearance, but also our individual karma, our material personal karma. This is an appearance. And at a certain point, this should be broken. We must leave this situation and expand towards an expansion, a greater movement. We must give an answer to give a response to the need of these times, of this epoch, and not only live this in charge of the brothers of the space, the bases, the planetary centers, because with us, all things that correspond to them are here and they are all to be done. They are all to be carried out and developed. And we should not proceed in this illusion that we are busy, for example. No, I am busy. I don't stop here. Since the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, I'm fulfilling tasks. These things that are being said, this is a different plane. This is not the plane of the tasks. The plane of the task is included in this, for sure. This could also happen on the physical plane, but this is a different plane. So while we are fulfilling a task, while I am cooking here, preparing lunch for 200 people, this is not an excuse to not be doing this work, because cooking for 200 people has nothing to do with this. While you are cooking for 200 people, while you are planting there, you are doing this. This is happening. This is a different plane. This is a different level. This is an expansion of our consciousness that will reflect on everything we do, which will really reflect on what happens here. Everything that happens here will have a different quality, will have a different vibration, because on other planes in our consciousness. We are connected with this. We are alive for this. We are turned to this. This gives us the possibilities to act here much beyond that which is normal. There is such thing of not having time, space, of having a lot to do, of being busy. These are illusions, as we know, through the ancient books, because the books of Alice Bailey say this in all possible ways. Be careful with the illusion of being busy. This is all illusion. Where is our essence, our capacity, the potential in us? Where is our potential? It's not our figure of today, our scheme of today, our situation of today. It's our potential that must be in our consciousness and our interest.